We are transmitting live from San Diego, California, from the studios of KPBS on the campus of San Diego State University. Greetings to our participants in Mexico, Honduras, Costa Rica, Panama, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, Paraguay, Brazil, Bolivia, Argentina, and other countries in Latin America. We would also like to welcome our distinguished viewers here in the United States. And we would like to thank once again Telecomunicaciones de México, PanamSat, and BrazilSat for their satellite linkage services, which allow us to reach all of you through the wonders of telecommunications. Welcome to the program Managing Groups and Diversity, Consensus Building and Empowerment, which is the second video conference in our 1996 series, Strategies for Global Competitiveness. My name is Armando Osorio, and I will be your moderator for this video conference. We would like to remind the coordinators at each received site to collect the attendance sheets for your sites and mail them to the International Training Center, along with a list of participants interested in obtaining the certificate. As in the past, this program is composed of 2 presentation modules and 2 question and answer sessions. We look forward to your live participation. In recent years, educators, business leaders, and professionals worldwide have accepted team building and teamwork as essential ingredients for competitiveness. However, with the globalization of our economies, the diversity and complexity of the decision criteria and multicultural perspectives within our work teams has been forcing us to find new formulas for reaching consensus and for empowering our employees to make decisions with shared responsibility. If this is not achieved, the team concept cannot be used as an effective management and performance tool. This video conference will discuss the concept of diversity and consensus building within our organizations, a growing challenge in light of today's international free trade and strategic business alliances. The guest experts will present the requirements for successful teamwork in this context. They will also discuss the basics of consensual decision-making and other criteria essential in collaborative work, the relationship between work teams and our formal organizational structures, the impact of speed in decision-making, the effects of cultural variables, and the power of teamwork in task implementation. The concept of empowerment is discussed as a condition sine qua non for achieving team effectiveness in our increasingly diverse workplace, thus reaffirming the importance of continuous training and professional development at all levels in our organizations. Furthermore, electronic media will contribute more and more to live distance interaction between groups located at different sites and across borders, thus complicating team management tasks unless consensual decision-making procedures can be instituted permanently. It is my pleasure to present to you today's guests and expert speakers, Mr. Luis Spain and Mr. Paul Worthington. Mr. Spain is a highly regarded practitioner of organizational development and business effectiveness programs based on employee involvement and team problem-solving strategies. Mr. Spain has many years of consulting and technical assistance experience with organizations ranging from small San Diego companies to large multinationals, including Nissan. Mr. Spain has been a featured speaker at numerous national and international forums, including the National Management Association, the International Association of Quality Circles, and others. As a guest instructor at San Diego State University, Mr. Spain has been distinguished by his pragmatism and excellence in communication skills. Mr. Worthington is Director of Research and Development for Linda Mood Bell Learning Processes in San Luis Obispo, California. He has conducted much research and consulting in fields associated with human learning. Mr. Worthington spent 8 years working for the Department of the Air Force in intelligence operations and is currently managing various research projects on the Navajo Reservation in Window Rock, Arizona, in the Chicago public school system, and also with Helen Curtis Corporation in Chicago, Illinois. Mr. Worthington's forthcoming book, The Journey to Know, is a compendium of current research, including his own in fields associated with human learning. Mr. Worthington holds degrees in sociology and education, among others, and is working towards his PhD in human organization and development. Welcome, gentlemen. Before we begin, I would like to ask you both a few questions. In some of our past video conferences, we have learned that in every team there exists a negative person, that is a farrago, who constantly questions the majority and who tends to generate conflict. If we add to this scenario the complexities of today's more and more diverse workforces, why do we still insist on utilizing teamwork? Aren't the costs involved greater than the benefits?
Actually, the presence of a farrago sometimes is unavoidable. And in a situation like that, what you can rely on in order to leverage the benefits of team building, which are pretty much undeniable, is to make effective use of processes within the team. If you can do that, then you can perhaps use this as more of a stimulant to open discourse than an obstacle to the team's effectiveness.
Senor Worthington?
The benefits clearly outweigh the cost in this case, and the reason for that is that there's a fundamental necessity in having that particular set of views. There's a saying that goes something to the effect that perception is a matter of contrasts. Contrasting the negative views towards those issues that come along and what ultimately winds up as being the consensus are necessary actually to achieving the consensus within the whole teamwork enterprise, and so they actually play a role in the overall process.
What are we referring to when we talk about decision making in consensus?
In the course of a team's evolution, there are a number of critical decision-making points. For example, what is commonly delegated or assigned to a team is an issue that is deemed important by management. It is still the need of the team to select a specific problem that they can focus their efforts on. Likewise, when it comes time to determine how to maximize the problem or the opportunity decided on, selecting which family of causes they will act upon, and subsequently in terms of deciding on a solution from the 20 or 100 different ones that they might identify, it's critical for the team to be well equipped to make decisions that take into account all of the factors that will contribute to their overall success.
Sir Worthington?
The definition of both of those really falls into what would best be referred to probably as a process. And what we know is that there is in fact a proportional relationship between how well business people, team managers, team members, team leaders, etc. A proportional relationship between how well the team building process goes and exactly how well consensus or the decision making process is enacted, and being able to clearly articulate the process itself leads to then consensus and empowerment.
¿Quiere esto decir que todos estaremos de acuerdo a medias?
Do you mean that we will always be halfway in agreement in the team?
In some instances, it is not possible for every person on the team to be able to act on their most preferred approach. However, it's been my experience that if the team takes the time to generate a number of alternatives, that they will find enough that have sincere and deep appreciation by all members of the team, they'll be able to move forward. This gets into the real definition of consensus, which is not that everybody gets to work on their first preference, but they get to work on a preference which they feel has genuine value to themselves as well as the team.
I'd agree. I think that the again, understanding the process involved in the team building enterprise, you'll recognize that not everybody is going to be, as they say, on the same page. And in fact, the views of those people who ultimately don't agree with whatever the final decision is are just as valuable as those who are in agreement. And that again allows for then the best examination of all the options, regardless of what the business problem is.
Por último, se habla mucho hoy en día del concepto de...
And lastly, there is a lot of talk today regarding multifunctional teams. What does this term refer to?
Basically, it refers to the fact that there is within any workplace, whether it's an educational institution, a service organization, or a production-oriented type organization, an extended process, which includes, at the minimum, the people who represent where the primary functions are being performed, those people external to that group who supply them with the resources and services they need to perform these primary functions, and most importantly, the customers of this function, whether they are internal and external. This defines a team relationship which is inescapable and which is absolutely critical to the right things being done, that makes the formation of teams absolutely necessary to success.
I think that the best perception that I could offer on the whole idea behind multifunctional teams is that there's a direct correspondence between, especially in the business world today, there's a direct correspondence between the amount of information and knowledge that team members have about the various jobs and the actual business metrics, such as quality. The more people that know about more jobs and the nature of those jobs, then the more clear the translation into the key business metrics that businesses are looking at.
Does the traditional professional work perspective apply to team building?
Could you repeat that, please?
Does the traditional professional work perspective apply to team building?
Paul?
Yeah, it can apply very directly to that. Certainly, there's no such thing as an immediate transferal between traditional work environments, let's say, into team environments, and so there's going to be always some traditional forms that will be applicable in some jobs. It's not to say that teaming will universally be applicable. Although, as the information age now comes online and new technologies emerge, more and more of the, both in the management and the production side of businesses, tend to now go towards the teaming approach because there are fewer and fewer jobs that correlate very well to the more traditional hierarchical forms of production and management.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if by a professional, what is being referred to are non-production type jobs, more information type workers or service workers, What we're finding is that perhaps the greatest opportunities for performance improvement reside within these professional areas, because until now there has been the conceit that the work that they do is too intellectualized to have metrics applied to them, and as a consequence the experience of many organizations of that type is that things are relatively unpredictable, and that they tend to take more time and greater expense than you would typically find in a more measured environment. But there is a process in every activity, regardless of how professional or intellectual, which can be monitored, which can be measured, and therefore which can be predictably improved. Currently I'm working on a project with the Center for Applied Competitive Technologies where we're applying metrics to case management of a variety of intellectual projects which 10 years ago people would have said can't really have metrics applied to it.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Pasamos al módulo 1.
Let us begin Module 1, in which Mr. Spain will discuss the importance of using work teams in our organizations and how to achieve team consensus in our organizations.
In the last 2 years, information on many aspects of team building have been presented here at the ITC. We have discussed the 5 phases of team building: forming, storming, norming, performing, and transforming. The characteristics of effective teams have been presented along with the criteria for selecting the best team members. The different dynamics of task and process has been examined at length. The variety of team decision-making processes has been identified and ranked in order of preference. The very soul of team building has been scrutinized in the grace, spirituality, and Tao of teams. 3 athletic models of team building were used to describe the variety of operating characteristics to be found in different kinds of teams. So, is team building the answer? It's not always clear that that is the question being asked. The last few years have been filled with much news of bankruptcies and mergers, divestitures and consolidations, economic embargoes and trade agreements, and right-sizing and re-engineering. The role of team building seems to have been overshadowed by the bold actions of billionaire entrepreneurs, captains of industry, and world political leaders. And the results have been impressive. The December 11th, 1995 issue of Fortune magazine declared Coca-Cola's Roberto Goizueta and General Electric's Jack Welch the champions of creating shareholder wealth. Microsoft's Bill Gates' $13 billion personal primacy as the software titan of the world is being directly challenged by Scott McNealy of Sun Microsystems. His company's internet software, Java, has made the operating system wars obsolete. At the very moment that Windows 95 seems to have vanquished both IBM's OS/2 Warp 3 and Macintosh System 7.5 once and for all. By including a software virtual computer that can operate on any type of computer platform, software programmers on the World Wide Web can offer their applets independently of Microsoft, Intel, Macintosh, or even international trade agreements. With leadership this brilliant, the question could be asked, who needs teams? Who needs all the hassle of team building? The 3-part answer is everyone, more than ever, and yesterday. In nature, the hunters of the world are the carnivores: lions, tigers, eagles, and bears. One of the fiercest of them all individually is the bear. Fast, well-armed, and hugely powerful, all other creatures give bears a wide berth whenever possible. Bears have no natural enemies apart from man. The threat of a vigorous, healthy bear is surpassed only by that of the proverbial wounded bear. However, even a small herd of stampeding bulls or even cows would sweep this ultimate predator aside as easily as a broom sweeps a floor. The awesome power of teamwork prevails even in nature. The rate of change on the economic battlefield of the 90s is lightning fast and strikes anywhere at any time. No leader, no matter how brilliant, charismatic, or dedicated, can be in all the places where change is attacking their company when action needs to be taken. The all-conquering virtual companies of today are clusters of agile, quick-strike teams that attack competitors' advantages, changes in monetary policies, and government regulations with surgical precision and to lethal effect. Not all efforts of team building have been unconditionally successful, however. Most people can more easily recall unsuccessful teams they have been on than successful ones. One thing in business more complex than individual people are groups of people. And the only thing more difficult to manage than groups of people is to get them operating as a high-performing team. According to Jung, people have two powerful and conflicting motivations: affiliations with groups to be valued by others, and to preserve and cherish their individual uniqueness. Being a member of a team is not an entirely natural behavior for human beings. Dr. Patricia Geist, in a previous ITC video conference held in 1994, correctly pointed out the dilemma of fixing a broken team without the aid of miracles or increasing the structure excessively. Miracles are not available and reliable, and the latter, if overdone, stifles the very creativity that is such a crucial element of a team's superiority over non-integrated individual contributors. As is usually the case, the solution is somewhere in between these two extremes. Because of the relationship difficulties more prevalent in teams, people have a lower tolerance for failure in teams than they have in solitary endeavors. Their sense of control over events is diminished. The goals being pursued are potentially not only diverse, but perhaps even divisive. Where teams are concerned, more is not necessarily merrier. Basic motivational theory posits that the probability of success must be commensurate with the importance or value of the outcome. And even if the potential outcome is spectacular, if the probability of failure is too high, motivation will be too low to sustain the determination needed for success. The bottom line is that initial team-building efforts must be virtually guaranteed of success. The first time, every time. And if the team-building efforts are in conjunction with necessary non-traditional interventions such as benchmarking, cycle time reduction, just-in-time, statistical process control, re-engineering, then the level of ambiguity is commensurately higher. the tolerance for failure is even smaller. The need for initial success is even more acute. There are 5 powerful unifying factors available to those who are serious about effective, long-lasting team building. Direction, achievable goals, appropriate structure, genuinely consensual decision-making, and urgency, speed. Direction identifies the number one responsibility of effective team sponsorship and leadership. Directing teams on what performance issues are most crucial to the success of the business. Many leaders are so concerned about stifling a team's creativity, they refuse to provide this sort of direction to a new team. They sincerely state and believe that the team is very knowledgeable about the issues in its work area. Therefore, the team should feel comfortable about the value of whatever issue they choose to work on. This is a recipe for disaster. A team I once facilitated was working diligently on the development of accurate and up-to-date instructions on how to build the components in their shop. As they neared completion, they were visited by their sponsor, the manager of quality assurance. It had been some time since his last visit. When he was informed of the issue the team was working on, the lack of up-to-date assembly instructions on file, he became very irate. He felt their selection was a very low priority concern. He felt that since the overall performance in the area was so far below profitable levels, they should have chosen something more crucial to focus on. When he had become embarrassed about becoming so upset and calmed down, the team leader pressed him for ideas on what he would prefer they focus on. The manager proposed they work on a situation where the setup of a component into the proper assembly tool was taking over 70 hours to complete against a budget for only 26 hours. The team cheerfully switched their attention to this new issue, identified 3 solvable problems connected to it, and in a few months reduced the hours to below 20. The annualized savings for this project exceeded $225,000. They had benefited from the direction given them by their sponsor. Achievable goals are difficult to accomplish for 2 main reasons. The goals assigned by team sponsors usually reflect issues rather than individual problems. The difference is that issues are larger, more complex entities comprised of many smaller individual entities called problems. Some can be solved by the team, some can't. And the solution for one problem is very unlikely to be the solution for another problem. Each will have its own unique family of causes that have to be minimized or eliminated. The key is to allow the team to identify the individual problems using tools like brainstorming, nominal group technique, or criteria rating. By focusing their attention on an individual problem